Hey guys and girls, Nathan here from the B.Invested headquarters. I just want to answer some of the questions from you guys in the community. First one here is, should I buy a house which has asbestos in it? It's important to understand what asbestos is, how it affects people, and should or shouldn't you buy a property that is got asbestos in it. Personally, in my personal property portfolio, I have hundreds of properties, and probably half of them to 3/4 of them have asbestos in them in some way, shape or form. Let me delve into and explain how that would be the case. Basically, any property that was built before 1990 should be considered as having asbestos in the property. You might say, well, I've got a brick house, it doesn't have any asbestos in it. If you've got a red brick house, one of those houses that are from like the mid 80s, early 70s, 60s or 50s, you would have asbestos inside of that property. Where is asbestos commonly found? Let's assume you've got a brick house, and you go, well, there's brick, it's got no asbestos. Well, there is fibrous cement asbestos in these properties. Where it's commonly located is in the eaves around the house, so underneath the gutter, that strip of gyprock looking material which sits underneath the tiles is generally full of asbestos. The kitchen and the bathrooms, the wet areas of the property, generally if it's built between the 50s or the 90s, would contain asbestos. These wet areas need to have, it was a James Hardie product which had asbestos particles inside it. Nowadays you have blue board, villa board, you've got different types of gyprock, there's different types of fibre that you can get today which contain silica, which now there's new problems that are occurring with silica and silica poisoning from people that are cutting it. However, most properties have asbestos in them in some way, shape or form. So it goes on to question, should you not buy a property with asbestos? Well, most properties do have some form of asbestos. Some properties do have a lot more. So where that can occur is in sort of like a fibro house, or even a cladded house. A lot of people think, oh, clad's got clad on it, but underneath that clad, generally they've cladded over an asbestos house. So properties that were built, in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, would generally have, if they're made out of fibro, the outsides would be made out of asbestos, as well as all those other areas. So you'd have the walls asbestos, you'd have the bathroom asbestos, the kitchen asbestos, the eaves asbestos, so you'd have more asbestos in that property. Further to that, some properties actually have asbestos roofs on them, which looks like a corrugated effect. Some houses have asbestos on the fencing. Some houses even have asbestos gutters and downpipes. So I recently had a house which caught on fire, which exploded. A tenant had done some damage to the property, and it was like a volcano spitting this asbestos out. Would it deter me from owning a property which is full of asbestos? Generally, asbestos left alone is generally okay. However, I'm not a health professional, I don't profess to be, but how asbestos affects people is generally once it's disturbed, people going in there to knock it around, sand it, patch it, cut it, any sort of format of playing with the asbestos, it makes the particles turn into dust, and those dust particles, once they're inhaled, get stuck in your lungs. So as you keep breathing, it only matters over a couple of decades. It occurs via this asbestos, which can't break down or pass throughout your system, starts causing scarring into your lungs, and eventually can cause further problems to your health. So ideally, if you are going to renovate a property, it's important to make sure that you contain that asbestos. Check if it's got asbestos first. Dispose of it correctly. Make sure that you're working on it correctly. Make sure you're being safe when you're working on the asbestos. But generally, if you're leaving a property that you're not playing with and causing disturbance with the asbestos, the property is perfectly safe. Probably half or 3/4 of the properties around a lot of the areas that were built in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s would have asbestos. A lot of you guys would have grown up in a house with asbestos, probably not even known about the asbestos. So would I invest in a property, or would I run away from a property with asbestos? I would take risks and measure that risk and go, okay, what would be the value of this property? What would be the value for me to have to dispose of that asbestos? Let's assume that it's got an asbestos roof. in the future, that asbestos roof won't last forever. So you may have to replace that roof, you may have to dispose of the asbestos. Would that cost me an extra $10,000? Quite possibly. I would want to factor in that I would get a reduction a little bit to incorporate the value of the asbestos. If it's just in the kitchen or the bathroom, it's just like a normal house. Most houses have it. Do check, speak to someone that you know that does understand about asbestos before you do starting renovations. Also understand that there is some other areas of the property, be it underlay in a sort of lino or kitchen area. I remember once that on my first property, I pulled out all this stuff. I know I got asbestos all through my lungs. I'm all right to this day. However, it can have bigger sort of implications later on in life for you. So do your own checks and your own research. Is it a viable option to purchase a property that does have asbestos in it? As I said, I own lots of them. It doesn't faze me. However, I do sort of put in there a little bit of a factor of disposal of asbestos. If I am thinking of in the future that I'm going to have to take off a roof, take off the gutters or whatever, and replace them with a colour bond or whatever the case may be. So if you need help on it, guys, reach out to our office, speak to my team, 1300 367 925. We'll catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.